Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to, in whatever form, curriculum night at Islander Middle School this year. My name is Hilary Galland, and I am your child's English Language Arts lab teacher. Our class meets second period in my classroom, and I just want to go over kind of a brief history of who I am as a teacher and what our goals are for the year. So, a little about me. I'm from Illinois, actually. I grew up in a town outside of Chicago called Evanston, but I've lived all over the country and all over the world. I do speak Spanish pretty fluently. I used to speak French and German well, and I have never spoken Chinese well, but not for lack of trying. um, I went to a school in Connecticut called Wesleyan for undergrad, and I got two master's degrees in education. The first I got in 2003, and that I got in teaching English language arts. And the second I got in 2019. I was given a tuition funded master's in special education. I had been working with kids in the Bronx and began to recognize that everyone learns differently. All kids have different brains, and all kids are affected in different ways by things around them in the world. These days, particularly technology. So, studying special ed to a greater degree seemed like a wise move. Um, in between those two master's degrees, I got national board certification in English language arts in 2007. And I am currently completing a master's in clinical social work to practice partly as a counselor, possibly, because another thing I've seen in the classrooms where I've taught is the need for um, psychology, even if it's not necessarily blatant. It's helpful, I think, to understand what students need, not just intellectually, but also social emotionally. I've taught for about 20 years. Almost all of those years, I taught English language arts. And then I started teaching special education inclusion classes where it was English language arts with kids who have special needs in the class. So I've done that for about 10 years, and I got certified for it about 5 years ago when I finished my master's in special ed. I've worked in Chicago. I've worked in Taiwan. I lived in Hsinchu for a year and taught at an international school there. I taught in Washington, D.C., both at a public school and then at a boarding school in Alexandria, Virginia, called the Episcopal School. I taught in the Bronx at a Quaker school in Brooklyn, Colorado, and taught in Seattle, and now I'm teaching here at Mercer Island. I actually started my career here in Mercer Island working for the high school as an instructional coach, which means I was hired to help special ed teachers address the needs of all kids in their classes and become better in their capacities to recognize the sort of wide variety of kids' brains and how kids learn. But when the opportunity to work here as an actual teacher opened up last year, I realized how much I missed working with students, and so I took it immediately. My hobbies are reading and gardening, um, among other things, but those are sort of my two favorite pastimes. Goals in our lab class, we're going to be switching kids in and out this year. Some kids have goals on their IEPs that are particularly geared at English language arts. Some kids do not have those goals. So I'll be working primarily with the students who do. And while I work with those students on their English language arts goals, they're going to first ideally become more fluent readers and writers who can both read and write in all different kinds of formats. And that means um, being able to read text that is written in Old English, like Beowulf, or um, text that was written and then translated from Chinese, or text that is nonfiction or fiction, or text that is full of grammar errors so they can identify those errors themselves to become better writers. They'll also learn to write in different formats: formal English for papers, creative expression essays, directions. There are just so many different ways that you can code switch as both a writer and a reader. And we'll work on all of those in my class. I'll hopefully help them to get to love reading, which can be a tough sell sometimes. But I grew up loving to do it, and I'm sure some of your students do as well already. Um, Lab's particular purpose, the English Language Arts Lab, is to help students gain confidence and feel supported in regard to their English Language Arts classes and their English Language Arts goals on their IEPs. And the other expected goal is that kids will respect not just the guidelines and expectations in my classroom, but the guidelines and expectations in other classrooms as well. Those expectations include punctuality. It's nice for kids to be on time. I really appreciate when students review the feedback that their teachers give them. It's meant to be useful. Um, but if kids don't read it, it can't really be useful. And that they gain the ability to clarify when they don't understand something. Not just say, I need help, but clarify what it is that they need help with. I think that's an excellent way in which students can clarify what they're confused about for themselves before asking for clarification from others. And finally, kindness to others. Um, Kindness is such an important virtue, and to show it in our classroom is something I'd like to see all students able to do throughout the year. I'm looking forward to meeting those who are able to swing by in person, and even if you're not, please don't hesitate to check in with me anytime throughout the year when you might need my help. My email address is on this slide. Thanks so much.